Ready to take your rental experience to the next level? Whether you're a landlord or a tenant in Delaware, understanding the latest laws and rights is key to a successful and peaceful relationship. In this video, we'll explore the updated guidelines, giving you the tools you need to navigate the Delaware rental market with ease. Keep in mind that if you need specific help with your rental agreements, you should contact a lawyer for legal advice. Is Delaware considered a landlord-friendly state? Considering the regulations published in Delaware Landlord Tenant law, Delaware is not considered a landlord-friendly state. The main reason for this is that tenants have a high grade of leverage over their landlords, which can affect the way in which they manage the rental agreement. On the other hand, the Landlord Tenant Code doesn't prohibit the rent control policies, meaning that each municipality may impose unique rent limitations for the landlord. Rental agreements. In Delaware, every lease agreement should be written if the lease term is 1 year or longer. Otherwise, the lease may be oral. However, it's always recommended to go with a written form since it can help both parties in cases of a legal dispute over rent, eviction, or damages. Overall, here's what a rental agreement should always include: a description of the leased premises, information about the tenant and landlord, payment of the rent conditions, lease violation clauses, security deposit clauses, and a person responsible for the repairs and utility bills. Want to download your own lease agreement template? Click the link in the description. Tenant screening process. Landlords have the right to run a background check on a prospective tenant, assuming they have a written permission. In these cases, the state of Delaware regulates the amount of application fee that a landlord can charge their tenant. Application fees are non-refundable, and the fee may not be greater than 10% of 1 month's rent, according to the Delaware Landlord Tenant laws. What are landlords' rights and responsibilities? There are several regulations that both parties need to keep in mind at the time of signing a new lease agreement. However, these terms also come with a set of rights for both the tenant and the landlord. It's important to remember all these rights since they can help either party in case of legal dispute. According to Delaware Landlord Tenant laws, every landlord has the legal right to request rent payments on time, collect security deposits to cover damages that exceed normal wear and tear, and pursue a proper eviction claim if the tenant is seen violating any of the terms of the lease. Every landlord is responsible for providing their tenant with a habitable rental unit that complies with local housing and safety codes. The tenant may request repairs to the property, and the landlord has an obligation to make them promptly, usually within 12 days' notice. If the landlord fails to provide these repairs within 12 days' notice, the tenant can seek legal advice from an attorney. The landlord must provide the tenant with electrical, plumbing, and sanitation, running water, HVAC system, and trash cans. What are tenants' rights and responsibilities? Every Delaware tenant has the right to seek a habitable rental unit that complies with the local housing codes, as well as seeking housing without any kind of discrimination from their landlord. If there are any repairs needed for the property, the landlord is entitled to receive written notice from their tenant so that they can get the repairs done. In the case that the tenant fails to provide that notice within the reasonable period of time, they may not be legally allowed to seek alternative action. Every tenant is responsible for maintaining the unit in good condition. This includes checking the electrical, plumbing, and sanitation appliances to verify that they are working properly. Aside from that, every Delaware tenant is responsible to pay rent on time, keep every fixture clean, do small maintenance jobs, not disturb other neighbors or tenants, and follow all the clauses stated in the agreement. Rental agreement general clauses. Now that you know the foundation of every lease, it's time that you learn how to identify the general guidelines of each agreement. If either the landlord or tenant fails to comply with these housing rules and laws, they may be exposed to legal action from the other party. Rent payments. Unless stated otherwise, the landlord may request the rent payments at the beginning of each month. There are no current rent control policies, meaning that the landlord may charge any amount of rent they consider appropriate for their property. Another important thing to note is that the landlord must send the tenant at least 60 days notice if they're planning to increase rent. In those cases, the tenant has 15 days to respond. In the case that the tenant doesn't respond within 15 days or refuses the increase, they must leave the property after at least 60 days. Landlords can charge late fees to their tenants if they wish. However, these late fees cannot exceed 5% of the cost of the rent. Additionally, these fees may only be charged the tenant after a 5-day grace period has passed. Security deposit. A security deposit is mainly collected by the landlord as a prospective measure against damages to the property, unpaid rent, or unpaid utilities. The value of the security deposit cannot be higher than the cost of 1 month's rent. Keep in mind that the landlords could charge a pet deposit to their tenants if they plan to take a pet with them. On the other hand, the landlord must return the security deposit within 20 days of the tenant leaving the property to comply with the local housing laws. In the case that the landlord fails to return the deposit in these 20 days, they may be liable to pay double the amount wrongfully withheld. Keep in mind that landlords may withhold the security deposit partially to cover unforeseen expenses such as an unpaid rent or damages. In these cases, landlords must give the tenant an itemized list of deductions. Lease termination. Tenants can terminate the lease for any reason they consider appropriate. However, they must provide a particular notice to comply with the local housing laws. For example, the tenant has to provide a 60-day notice if they are month-to-month tenant. However, tenants can choose to terminate the lease before it ends if certain conditions are met. This is called early termination. You may terminate the lease if you find yourself in active military duty, because of early termination clause, because of a lease violation, domestic violence, or landlord harassment. Evictions. Landlords in Delaware can evict their tenants from the rental property for non-payment of rent. If the tenant fails to pay rent on time, the landlord must give the tenant a 5-day notice to pay or quit. In the case that the tenant doesn't pay the rent, landlords can start an eviction claim. Breach of lease. Landlords must send a 7 days notice to cure or quit. After these 7 days, the landlord can start an eviction process immediately. In case of a criminal activity, the landlord can start an immediate eviction. At-will tenants with a month-to-month lease should receive at least 60 days written notice before getting evicted. Click the link in the description to see our full guide on the eviction process and laws for Delaware. Staying informed on Delaware landlord tenant laws and rights is crucial for a successful and peaceful rental experience. By understanding the latest updates and exercising your rights, you can prevent disputes and ensure smooth tenancy. I hope this video has provided valuable insights and resources for you to navigate the rental market in Delaware. If you want more information for your case, make sure to contact an attorney. Don't forget to check out the links in the description for more in-depth information. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Best of luck in your rental journey. Also, if you'd like to see more videos, check this out.